Everyone's a Wally was released in 1985 and was the third game in the Wally Week series, starting with Automania, then Pyjamarama, Everyone's a Wally, Herbert's Dummy Run, and finally 3 Weeks in Paradise. I never owned Everyone's a Wally back in the day, but I did own 3 other games in the series and remember them very vividly. I also remember, equally as vividly, that I had absolutely no idea what I was doing in any of them. I found them fascinating, but impenetrable. But back then, I was a stupid child with a short attention span. Things would be different now. I was a stupid man with a short attention span. Everyone's a Wally would be the first game in this series that I could play from start to finish, finally getting to the bottom of this popular yet complicated series of games. That was the plan, anyway. Let me start off by saying that Everyone's a Wally is an incredibly ambitious game for what is essentially a puzzle adventure platformer. Firstly, you're going to get the opportunity to play as every single member of the Wally family. There's Wally, of course, but you also have his wife, Wilma, Tom, Dick, and Harry. Each of these characters is pretty unique, each with their own colour and very well animated. It also goes a bit deeper than that, though. Each of them has their own profession. Wally is a builder, Tom is a mechanic, Dick is a plumber, Harry's an electrician, and Wilma is good at shopping. She also does something with books. Let's say she's a librarian, probably. This gaggle of tradesmen were given further character thanks to a B-side track by Mike Berry.
Now Wally was a builder, and he had to build an house. He knew the basics of the trade, but hadn't got the nous to lay the bricks, dig the drains, or put in lights and doors, to slate the roof, plumb the bath, or lay down any floors. But Wally was a grafter, and he didn't like the shirt. That's why he called in all his mates to help him do that.
I'll leave a link to the full track in the description below, but suffice to say, it's definitely a song. The idea behind the game is to complete various jobs around town. Each character has their own job to do, and each job will need to be completed in order to hit the completion screen. Each job will award you money, but the only way to cash in on that money is to pick up 5 letters, 1 for each character, to spell the word break. Once that's done, you can get your money from the bank. If this all sounds pretty complicated so far, don't worry, it gets more complicated. Each of the 5 characters you can control or move around on their own when you're not in charge, wandering through the town, picking up items and dropping other items, and generally going about their business. Now, I don't have the rose-tinted specs on for this, as I never played it back in the day, but this whole concept feels pretty unique, and it certainly slathers an interesting social layer on top of the game. This level of autonomy, as simple as it seems now, breathes an incredible amount of life into the world. You'll perhaps be wandering along the streets as Wilma, probably on her way to Debenhams, and in the opposite direction you'll see another character strolling past, getting on with their business, doing their own thing. To my mind, I can't think of many other games that did this back in 1985, and certainly none within this genre. It's pretty damn unique. On the subject of wandering the streets, I'm struck by just how quintessentially British this whole game feels. He has a post office, a butcher's, letterboxes, telephone booths. The world of Everyone's a Wally, or more specifically, the town of Everyone's a Wally, is so brilliantly realised. The graphics are wonderfully detailed, everything has character and flavour, and everything about it just makes me want to explore its nooks and crannies to map out this fictional place in my mind. So here's the thing. Why don't I like it? I know, this is going to be a controversial one, and it's one I'm fully expecting folk to disagree with, but I can't lie to you here. I have the utmost respect for this game. I genuinely think it's one of the most innovative, interesting, and ambitious games I've seen on the Spectrum, especially when we consider that mid-80s release date. But I don't enjoy it. Look, don't cancel me just yet, hear me out. I've come at this game without the benefit of nostalgia, but as with all the reviews I do, I try to balance the subject across 2 imperfectly balanced quotas. 1, would this have been good back when it was released, whether I experienced it then or not? And 2, is it still fun today, again, whether I experience the game or not? Is this specifically tough to balance when you're dealing with nostalgia because there's always an inherent bias involved? When I consider the first point, would this have been good back when it was released, I can categorically state that yes, this would have been excellent. Much like Pyjamarama, Herbert's Dummy Run, and 3 Weeks in Paradise, I would have spent hours exploring the game while getting absolutely nowhere in the process. If anything, the whole concept behind this game would have drawn me in even more. Is it fun today, though? Here are my gripes. I'm going to lay them bare, and please, if I'm wrong, correct me on any of these in the comments, but I'm digging in. I've got the knife and fork out, and I'm cutting right into it. First things first. I started the game with only the bare bones of what my task was floating around in my head. I start in front of a fountain, and you know what? I'm going to climb that fountain. That's what a man like me does. I see something that can be climbed, I climb it. And then I die. I die in a way that is admittedly reasonably funny in its completely nonsensical nature, but this started waving the warning flag in front of my eyes immediately. This was Treasure Island Dizzy territory. My hackles were up. I had been spurned. Fast forward a bit, I'm wandering around, I'm getting my bearings, I'm starting to piece together the landscape. I come across a zoo, so as with all the other places I set out to explore, I have a look inside. I die. Swift and immediate death. No recourse. So now the red flag is flying pretty strongly, and it's one I feel a little guilty for. These immediate death scenarios are something I hate, and it's also something I've forgiven in the past due to the cloudy nostalgia. Treasure Island Dizzy did this to me a lot, and probably much worse, but I forgave it because I had history with the game. I don't have history with this game, so I had to sort of force myself to forgive it. These aren't the only 2 times the game will kill you off with no recourse, but these 2 came thick and fast and immediately stuck their signature on my annoyance contract. These 2 suicide traps are important though. They're important due to what comes later. Consider this evidence A, Your Honour. The next thing that started to rankle me was the fact that I had practically no idea what I had to do at all. Even after a solid 45 minutes of exploration, noting down different pieces and what they could potentially be used for, I hadn't gotten any further, so I decided to have a look online and found a helpful set of hints on World of Spectrum. When I say helpful, I mean that in the kindest possible way, because whoever wrote them clearly knew their way around the game better than I did. So I got as far as the first hint. As Wilma, get books 1 and 2. Go to library and swap book 1 for the jump leads and book 2 for the Bunsen burner. Get book 3 and swap for the letter B. Sounds pretty plain and simple, right? So I take control of Wilma and I go out hunting for these books. I find book 2 and 3, but can I buggery find book 1 anywhere? It was at this point I realised that all of the characters wandering around are picking things up and dropping them wherever they go. You and everyone else can only carry 2 items. I couldn't swap the books in the library without finding book 1. I spent upwards of 30 minutes walking backwards and forwards. Not only was I completely out of luck when it came to finding the book, I became completely paranoid as to whether the book would even be visible. Was Wally carrying it? Had Dick taken up reading? Every time I saw a new character, I had to swap to them to check their inventory, causing Wilma to then wander off on her own, which meant I had to go and chase her down again. This wild goose chase took up so much of my energy that I was honestly close to leaving the game there and then. But no, I must have been missing something. I left it and went back to it the next day. This playthrough cemented my thoughts on the game, and even going back to it after this and trying multiple times to get behind it, I just couldn't shake the distaste. So, this playthrough, I find a more in-depth walkthrough and follow it to the letter. There's no way I'm getting through this on my own volition. I completely own up to that. As I make my way through the game, I start to pick up on little things that annoy me. Damage, for instance, is something that simply can't be avoided in most circumstances. You can enter a room and be stood directly on top of an enemy who immediately begins to sap your health. You have an energy bar for each character, thankfully separate from one another, but if you so much as have one character killed off, that's it, game over. It's at this point that I should mention there's another member of the family, Herbert, who everyone has left to crawl around town on his own. This baby also kills you. I have nothing further to add on the subject of this poor parenting. Later on in this playthrough, I had to pick up a gas mask and keep it in my inventory so I could enter a room filled with gas. You have no idea this particular room will be filled with gas, and you'll die if you enter it without the mask. At the end of this room, there's a pipe. Once you've found the pipe and the patch, you have to go and fix them using a tool found in one of the rooms. The walkthrough I was following gave no explanation on how to do this. I had to go and watch someone playing the game on YouTube. And even after that, I still didn't really understand what was happening. I basically just followed the same movements that this guy did, and eventually the pipe was patched. Now, because I was carrying the patch in the pipe, that meant I didn't have my gas mask anymore. I'd had to leave that somewhere because I was already carrying 2 items. But guess what? One of the other family members had picked it up and wandered off with it. After a jaunt around town, I eventually found it again and headed back. I put the pipe in place, and that was one job done. One of many, many jobs. I have, however, skipped out on a chunk of details here. There are 3 pivotal moments during this playthrough that ruined any enjoyment I would have wrung from this game, and they're all fairly similar, so excuse the Pulp Fiction style timeline I'm running with here. This pipe fixing job was actually the second job I'd completed. The first job was to fix the water fountain. The first task was to get some monkey nuts. Easy enough. Now, what would I need to do with these monkey nuts? I'll give you a second. If your answer was give the monkey nuts to a monkey, you're sort of right. But where would we find a monkey? I'll give you a second.
Oh, really? Musically.
If your answer was in a zoo, congratulations. But remember how earlier on I went to the zoo and it instantly killed me? Why would I try that again? Why would I throw away this admittedly short playthrough just to see if the answer is correct? The only clue we really have during the zoo death scene is a very brief glimpse from inside the zoo. Literal blink and you'll miss it style. I was playing with a walkthrough. I knew I had to go into the zoo, but the entire time I couldn't help but think, how would I know this? So you go in the zoo, you get a monkey wrench, and what do we need to do with the monkey wrench? I'll give you a second. If your answer was fix the fountain, then well done, you've earned yourself a gold star. But think back again, hadn't the fountain killed me for no reason at the very beginning of my first playthrough? Hadn't the game already taught me that climbing fountains was dangerous and I should stay away? Well, screw all that, because the game wants you to climb the fountain with the monkey wrench and that'll fix it. That's where this game's logic lies. All of these logical leaps had brought my blood pressure up, but there was one part of the pipe fixing job that I left out before. This is the part that really blew my whistle. When you go to retrieve the pipe, you'll notice that you need to bypass a shark. This thing is absolutely lethal, and touching it for even a moment will see your energy deplete rapidly. No problem though, there's a set of stairs here, so you can climb to the top, drop down, and Wally's your uncle. You can get past safely. This only works one way though. How do you get back? You can't jump past it, it's too tall. You can't walk past it, you'll be dead before you're halfway there. So what do? I'll give you a second. You have to wait. If you're unlucky, like me, you'll have to wait a lot. What are you waiting for exactly? You're waiting for another member of the Wally family to come down into the sewer. At any time you can press the 1 to 5 keys and the game will tell you where each family member is at the current time. Keep cycling through these keys until you find somebody that has entered the sewer. At this point, walk into the room where the shark is, switch characters so you become the other person, let the AI control the character so it walks past without getting hurt, and then switch back. No. No, no, no. I do not like this. I would never, ever, in 1,000,001 years, ever work this out on my own. Am I just plain stupid? Quite possibly, but no, I think that's the end of the sentence. So here we are then. It's time for the conclusion. It's time for me to wrap this up in a pretty little bow and give you what you came for. Would I recommend this game? Yes. I would. I hate it. I truly do not enjoy a second of this game, but I can also see why someone would absolutely love it, especially those who are completely entrenched in the ZX Spectrum game scene. It's an enormous game, full of things to do, to puzzle over, to understand. It has character in abundance. It's graphically superb. Its concept stretches well beyond the average ZX Spectrum game. I can see all of that. I can praise it for all of that. I can recommend it for all of that. But I can also say that it is leagues away from anything I would enjoy playing. Here's the thing that gets me. I have an attention span the size of a dog's anus, and games for me are a superb outlet for any gnawing anxiety I have whirring away behind my eye sockets. I love to see progression in games, whether that be me getting further into it, or me getting better at a game in general, or whatever else. A forward movement. Everyone's a Wally doesn't do that for me. It actively punishes me for seemingly innocent exploration. It has puzzles that feel like wild guesswork. Its action sequences feel unfair and lacking any real method. So to summarize, yes, I recommend the game. If you're someone who can deal with starting from square one over and over until the final piece of the puzzle slots into place, if you can handle the often incomprehensibly slow pace, if you can deal with a game that tests every facet of your brain while also requesting a near perfect playthrough to get to the end, this is for you. I'm sad to say, for the reasons stated, it ain't for me.
Good evening, viewers. Please note, if you have any complaints for Rose-Tinted Spectrum, please form an orderly queue in the comments below. Thank you.